Hi friends, it's Caitlin and welcome back to the Floating Rock podcast. I hope you're having the most incredible day ever. So, there has been a buzz online about this article that was published in British Vogue, I believe, and it was titled, "Is Having a Boyfriend Embarrassing?" And the second I saw that, I was like, very interesting. Do tell me more. If you haven't heard about this or read it, a journalist, writer, I don't exactly know what her title is, she noticed something happening in the social media scape, in the influencers or people in her life that she followed, and she noticed that people were posting their boyfriends differently / not at all, and she kind of thought that was interesting. So she went out and she did a little survey, and also just kept observing and talking to people and just seeing what was up. And basically what she kind of found, she found a few different takeaways through all of her interviewing and polling people and stuff, some of which were, sorry if I'm butchering it and you read it and you remember it better than me, apologies, but basically some of the things that she kind of gathered were people aren't posting their boyfriends anymore in case they break up, and she people are just that's just so fucking embarrassing to have to go and delete posts, and I'm that's tea. And then another one was people claim it was for privacy. It was really interesting actually that people actually had this kind of feeling about the evil eye, if you know anything about that, if you post lots of good things, or if anyone kind of knows these really good things, and the evil eye is kind of a jealous negative energy kind of going towards you from other people. So people kind of brought that up. And then most prominently, in which she dove further into, was some people are just it's embarrassing just to have a boyfriend. And she was very interesting, do tell me more. And so basically I've definitely seen a few more commentaries on this on the internet, and I read it the other day, so I'm it's not fully fresh, but I just thought the idea of this whole concept of is having a boyfriend embarrassing now, I was that is just so interesting, and I really wanted to talk about it with you guys, especially because I feel it's kind of relevant and floating around the internet, and by no means is this an original thought of mine, but I just join in on the conversation and hopefully inspire you to maybe think about this a little bit more, bring this topic into your other conversations in your life, and just see what other people think. My biggest takeaway from this, though, was, I mentioned this a few weeks ago, actually. I listened to this podcast episode with Shonda Rhimes on it, and she said the most insane thing. So, if you don't know Shonda Rhimes, she made Grey's Anatomy, she made Bridgerton, some of the most famous shows ever, and at some point in her career, maybe even still, she owns an entire night of television. So I think it was Thursday nights. It's her show, and then her show, and then her show, and then her show. Her pockets are fucking overflowing. So anyway, she was saying on the podcast that she got more congratulations, more attention in her life by the people that she kind of knows, or people who were sort of bystanders in her life. She got more attention and praise from getting engaged more than she did for having an entire night of television to herself, for basically winning the Nobel Peace Prize of TV writing. And I'm what? And she goes on this whole thing about how in our society it is the most impressive thing that you can do as a woman is have a man like you. And I just oh my god. And really, if you do think about probably a lot of the people in your life, especially maybe older generations, or even just other bystanders, if you tell them maybe something about your career or your personal life, that could get a level 6 kind of engagement from them. But why is it that if you say, oh my god, I have a boyfriend, or oh my god, I just got engaged, oh my god, I just got married, people are over the fucking moon for you? And that's kind of insane how that takes so much importance in our society, especially as women, because I almost feel guys don't get that amount of praise for getting married, getting a girlfriend, getting engaged, people, it's almost for women it's more of a feat. And obviously not all the time, but just general things I've noticed in life, or even in media, and how people kind of talk in TV shows, or even from Miss Shonda Rhimes on her podcast, But I did just the idea of questioning. I liked the idea of thinking about having a boyfriend, having a significant other. Actually, no, it is just boyfriend, because I think it's the man of it all that makes it interesting. And then cross-examining that with social media. Another point that she made was people kind of want to walk this tightrope of staying interesting, because immediately once someone gets a boyfriend, she's noticed this for influencers, or they've reached out to her after she's posted this, they're like, oh my God, the second I got a boyfriend, I got so many unfollows or so many comments about like, ah, man, now she's not interesting anymore. So it's almost like you can't kind of win. So like women are trying to walk this tightrope now of getting the internal and the social benefits of having a boyfriend. Oh yeah, I have a boyfriend, but while also trying to be fun and cool and interesting in themselves. And I'm like, that is so interesting how it's like, in a way you can't have everything. Obviously you can, and I'm very much a proponent of being able to have it all and not fitting within a box, obviously. But yeah, I just thought this is such an interesting thing. And I definitely like, not all the time, but every once in a while, like there are some like influencers where if they do get a significant other or post them a lot, I do actually find them a little bit less interesting. Whereas if it's just a girl being maybe not even single, but just a girl on her own, maybe she does have a husband or whatever, I do find her so much more interesting and engaging. And I'm like, wait, that is actually crazy to like see that reflected in my own brain. And what I think is basically the most powerful thing about this that I like is the idea that it's kind of showing women that a man should be the least interesting thing about you. And I feel like especially in our teens and early 20s, like, no, honestly, your entire fucking life, like not even right now, like, because then I think about your 30s where you are kind of like, in my head, that's like marriage age. Obviously people do it earlier and later, but I'm like, it's almost like at every stage of your life, your relationship with men completely changes how the world looks at you and even how you interact with other women. Like, I'm on this Facebook group actually about 20 like girls in their 20s who live in Hawaii, and it's people who like want to find friends and who want to find roommates and stuff like that. And it's really interesting because people will post on there and they'll lead with like, oh, I'm married, or oh, I have a kid, and a lot of the comments will align with that. It'll be other married women, girls, married girls, what the fuck, that sounds like child, okay, you know what I mean. But you know what I mean, like that is actually so interesting how even not even those aunties and uncles and older people in your life or your colleagues, it's like the actual, like the girls too interact with you differently depending on your relationship with a man. And also though, I will say my favorite comedian, Hannah Berner, she's married and nobody knows that she's married. Like it's not like she keeps it a secret, but she doesn't post him a ton. Her first post of her wedding did not have her husband in it. Very iconic. But she doesn't have a quote unquote married energy, a married vibe to her. And therefore, like, do I find her more interesting because of that? And then it's like, if you are giving relationship energy, like what even is that? I don't know. I'm just posing questions for you. But it is crazy though, like how much that does play into your life. Oh, I've been seeing too, like these cute like Instagram sort of slidey things, and I was very interested by it. She had like all these writing kind of points about how she stays detached in her healthy relationship, and I was like, oh, very interesting. But I do feel like too sometimes even if you are in a healthy relationship, it can become like you lose your individuality. And obviously that's a commentary in any relationship at all, right? I feel like we've all probably gone through moments of losing at least some individuality when it comes to like a romantic relationship. So I do think like that is something that I love, is like being brought to the forefront, and it's almost empowering to single women because it's so looked down upon, I feel like, to be single, especially the older you get. I'm like, I hate that like being in your 30s, you just feel like you have to be married. Not everybody, but you know, I just started watching Sex and the City actually, and they're in their 30s. And I also kind of spoiled the ending for myself. I watched like one of the last episodes with Best Girl Malia, and they were like in their 40s, and 2 of them were married, 2 of them were not. And I was like, wait, this is very interesting. And just, I love how that show actually just like examines like what it's like, not only to like, it just examines like what it's like to be a woman in and out of and in between relationships with men. And I'm like, woo, like that is just so interesting. And they kind of camouflage it in this like silly girls on the go, like filing through the men of New York City. And I just think it's so interesting. And I love the idea of men not being the forefront of who you are as a woman, period. Sorry if you're a dude listening to this. They've probably left by now. Might I also add too, I talked to my therapist about this a little bit ago, and I just thought I'd share with you guys, because I don't know like where you stand when it comes to like this whole thing internally. Like maybe you're like, fuck relationships, and honestly maybe you're a fucking cynic and you're like, I hate taking people. I wouldn't say I'm in that category. I think love is great. I love that shit. As long as it benefits you. Oh my God. You know what? I'm going to get into something else me and Malia were just having a conversation about. But quick bullet point before that, because you know I love an actionable little thing. And usually that takes form as a list at the end of the episode, but today it's just kind of coming right here. So I was talking to my therapist about being in eras of like liking male validation a little too much. And you know, I feel like I am a very self-help oriented person. Like in my head, I want to be above that. I want to be above the opinions of men, above the attention of men, you know, anything like that. So I'm telling her all of this. And she just says like, hey, hate to tell you, hate to remind you, you're a 22-year-old girl. That might just be normal. And I was like, what a horrible thing to say. Like that's so not what I wanted to hear. But she's right. And honestly, I've had some conversations recently with my friends and stuff. And at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of us are going through a very similar thing when it comes to just like men in general. And like, why are we even having this many conversations about the male species? But like, at the end of the day too, especially when you are a more self-growth oriented person, like it, or even talking about your boyfriend and stuff, but like, even if you think you're above it, just know too, if you can't really escape it, or if it's a really hard thing to work on, like, that's just normal. And like, honestly, it's like, what's the word? It's fucking biological at this point. So don't get too down on yourself if you feel like, God, I've had a lot of male-centered conversations recently, or, oh, my brain has been very male-centered recently. Like, definitely, I'm such a big proponent, and I'm obviously working on it as well, of like decentering men, as we like to call it. But I will say too, give yourself some fucking grace, because I think we're all going through the same thing. And honestly, guys too, like guys are constantly thinking about this type of shit too. Like, does she like me? Does she not? Like, I don't know the entire male psyche, but I know a little bit. And I just think everyone at our age, and honestly for a lot of life, is thinking about relationships, the lack thereof, or the one that they have, you know? So then, now, me and Malia were talking about, we saw this thing on Instagram about like relationships should, this guy's opinion at least, they should kind of create this like life force energy, this energy that is bigger than both individuals on their own. And I was like, oh, very interesting. And I definitely agree with that. And I think it relates to this whole is having a boyfriend embarrassing and decentering men sort of, because I really do believe, and especially in this current single era of mine, I really do want to like be 100 on my own. And I love the idea of that, and how that I think translates into relationships, and how it I think like doesn't become man-hating, is that when you're 100 on your own, like you can be 200 with somebody else, and that's like awesome, right? Like I'm sure that we've all, if you've had a romantic relationship, I'm sure that we've all had moments where you feel like, holy fuck, like I'm cool, but together like we're like rocking it. We are like a power couple, if you will. Like I've had moments where I've felt super inflow and super like this is like greater than just me on my own, and like it is, what's the word, an expanded, evolved version of both people that creates something even bigger, and that's beautiful. But I do think that involves both parties being, you know, kind of like aiming for 100 on their own, you know? Okay, honestly, I didn't expect today to be like turning into such a like relationships episode. I actually don't think I've ever really talked about this topic on the pod before, so like this is kind of fun, like kind of new and different. Oh, I forgot to tell you what my therapist told me. Sorry. The other thing my therapist told me. Guys, I'm all over the place. Sorry. I actually didn't plan this episode at all. I'm just kind of riffing. Normally I plan it more. But the other thing my therapist told me when it comes to men and male validation and all that was, after she told me, hey girl, it's natural, like sorry, she did tell me one thing that I did really appreciate was, as I've told you guys before, actually, fuck me, I think I've talked about this actually on the pod before, but I'll say it again because it's relevant. I've told you guys about the whole like kind of like mantras to say in your head, and you know, you fake it till you make it, then you believe it. And so one of mine was, your value is not diminished when it comes to like other people you're comparing yourself to. And so for this kind of category, the thing that we kind of talked about and kind of created was refocus. And I think when you are either in a relationship, or you're single and talking to somebody, or you're single and not talking to somebody, in all of those situations, I feel like saying to yourself, refocus, is a very like important thing, because at the end of the day, most of the time when you're thinking these thoughts, when they or the lack of they are consuming your thoughts, they're not there with you. It's not anything in the present. And once again, back to that whole point of like being 100 on your own, I like the idea of telling yourself not to stop thinking about it, not that that's a bad thing, but, or not to like delete, right? But to refocus. What are you doing? Where are you? Like, what is the task at hand in front of you? And why are you thinking about your boyfriend? Why are you thinking about your situationship? Why are you thinking about how there's nobody for you when you're just at the gym? You know? And then the coolest thing about that I love that we talked about was, what's the most attractive thing in the world is someone who loves what they're doing, someone who's enjoying what they're doing, someone who's focused. And so in that situation, let's say of the gym, maybe you're distracted thinking about something like that, something male-centered. But then, you know, you focus in, and what's more awesome than an incredible workout that's benefiting you? Like nothing, right? And I just like the idea of that. Maybe you're at work and you're thinking about the fight you got in with your man, or I don't freaking know. I'm just like throwing out shit, guys. But what makes you 100 on your own? What will make you come home a more calm, collected, just more developed version of yourself is actually stopping thinking about that and refocusing on the task at hand, on your job, you know, like, and killing it, right? The male voices are strong, but you are stronger. Like, you are so much stronger than that. I've kind of like yapped a lot about this. My overall point, though, is I really am happy that this writer kind of opened up this conversation about how we interact, and like how we interact with each other, how we think about ourselves, how we are on social media, everything kind of. She's opened up this conversation about singleness and being in relationships and that kind of divide, if you will. And my biggest takeaway, personally, for the girlies who are in any stage of relating to men, is at the end of the day, you are so interesting and so worthy of love and self-love and just so full of self-worth, with or without a man in your life. And even more so, I will say, when you do have a man in your life, like, making sure that that is not the fucking focal point, because at the end of the day, like, it's all you, especially when we're this young too. Like, pouring your whole life into a guy like who might not even be around the entire time is like crazy. And like, that's, you know, something huge that I hear about, like, from other people, or like older kind of generations or people, you know, is like sometimes they wish that they weren't in relationships in these pivotal points of life because they wish they just focused on themselves and focused on their friendships. Like, especially, like, I'm sure it's mostly just the girls who know, their female friendships, because those are like just the most incredible thing in the entire world. And one other thing Malia and I talked about when we were thinking about this whole life force energy when it comes to relationships, like, I think one of my best examples of this in my life, if not my best example of this, is my relationship with her. And like, what an incredible like energy and expansion that we both can create when we're together. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I think you can create that same kind of feeling and that same expansion, like I said, with your female friendships. And you don't need to have a partner, another half, to necessarily do that. Anyway, guys, point of today is you are awesome on your own, no matter if you have a significant other or not. I think that you are so interesting. I think that you are so full of life. I think that you as an individual is just like cool as fuck. And like, don't ever forget that. Don't ever let what a man thinks, don't ever let your current standing with relationships or where you are in that, don't let that ever diminish you. Like, I hate the idea of somebody thinking, like one of the girlies thinking that they're unlovable. I hate the idea of one of the girlies thinking like that they are less than because they don't have a boyfriend, they've never had a boyfriend. Like, that is just so far from the truth. I think that your self-worth and who you are as a person is so separate from whether or not you have a boyfriend. Because at the end of the day too, I've told my friends this before, when it's like, oh, I just haven't like met someone or this and that, like, it's a two-way street. Like, it just means you haven't met the right person yet, you know. And I guess that also is a good thing to bring around too. I'm not anti-relationship, I'm not anti-men necessarily, but I am pro women being independent and interesting and being more interesting than their relationships. So yeah, very fun today, guys. I hope that this inspires you to be like, hey, I'm a bad bitch. And go back and listen to the Bad Elations episode, because I think that they're very interconnected. But yeah, and if you're a guy and you've listened to this entire thing, I hope that this opens your mind to maybe to just think about kind of the society that the women in your life have to live in, and maybe how you either perpetuate that, how you work against that, how you show up as a boyfriend, and maybe even, because I'm not a guy, I don't exactly know, maybe even how we're going through really similar things right now. And you're like, no girl, like, don't shit on me. I'm standing in solidarity. The exact same thing's happening to me. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I hope it inspires some thoughts for you. Sorry if it wasn't terribly concise, but yeah, just a fun conversation to open up. I'm excited to see you guys next week. Follow the pod, rate the pod, subscribe to the pod. Yeah, it's all Floating Rock Podcast. Peace and love and peace, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.